I still remember the day the news broke. Trevor Engelson, Meghan Markle's ex-husband, the man who had stayed silent for years, finally spoke up. And what he revealed? It shook everything people thought they knew about her. The royal fairy tale, the perfect pregnancies, the glowing photos, suddenly none of it looked the same. Because behind the smiles, behind the glittering crowns and the palace lights, there was another story one only Trevor could tell. You see, Trevor isn't the dramatic type. He's not some fame-hungry ex chasing headlines or writing tell-alls. After Meghan left him, he built a quiet life. He remarried, had kids, poured himself into work. He never said a bad word about her, not once. But silence has a weight, and eventually, it cracks. And when Trevor's silence cracked, it wasn't with anger, it was with truth. The kind that burns quietly but leaves nothing standing. According to someone close to him, during their marriage, Meghan went through a serious medical procedure, a hysterectomy. A private, painful thing that made natural pregnancy impossible. It was something Trevor never expected the world to know. Something he assumed would remain locked forever between husband and wife. But when the whole planet started celebrating Meghan's royal pregnancies, Trevor watched from afar quietly, carefully, painfully. People called any doubts cruel. They said anyone who questioned the story was just bullying her. And Trevor, being the gentleman he was, stayed silent. He didn't want revenge. He wanted peace. But deep down, he felt this ache, the ache of knowing something the world refused to see. Because if the global story was a fairy tale, he'd seen the rough draft, the unedited version. And it wasn't the same. Before Harry ever entered the picture, Meghan was a struggling actress hustling in Hollywood, taking whatever role she could. Trevor remembers one in particular, a low-budget soap opera where she was supposed to play a pregnant woman. The role got scrapped, but she didn't treat it like nothing. She studied it. She practiced the walk, the posture, the hand over the belly. She rehearsed the way actresses mimic the pregnant glow, the slow breath, the soft smile. It was acting, but she mastered it. So years later, when Trevor saw her on those global walkabouts, when she held her belly just so, smiled that careful, serene smile, he froze. Because he'd seen it before. The gestures, the tilts, the exact stance, all identical to her old rehearsals. What the world saw as natural, Trevor saw as performance. He realized that the woman they were all applauding was playing another role and the performance was flawless. Her pregnancies, he felt, weren't just personal milestones. They were scenes executed with precision and sold to millions of viewers. And then there was the other thing. Trevor used to say Meghan had a special gift she could cry on command. One second she'd be calm, and the next her voice would tremble, her eyes would fill, and tears would stream down like heartbreak itself. No build-up, no hesitation, just tears. It was stunning, even eerie. At first, Trevor thought it was sensitivity, but then he saw the pattern. Whenever she needed sympathy, the tears appeared. Whenever accountability came close, she wept. And the story flipped. She became the victim, and Trevor, the villain. Every conversation ended with her being comforted, not questioned. He said it felt like living inside a movie where only one person had the script. Years later, when he saw her cry in interviews, dabbing her eye when no tears were visible, it was déjà vu. He knew that look. He'd seen those eyes in the mirror of their marriage. Those weren't emotions, they were tools. And the truth was always the price. Trevor never sold a story, never went public. But quietly, to those who listened, he warned that Meghan had faced medical issues far deeper than anyone imagined. Issues that made pregnancy impossible. People brushed it off until Samantha Markle spoke. Her sister's statement revived every buried rumor. She hinted that Meghan had indeed undergone a hysterectomy in her 20s. Suddenly, Trevor's old words weren't bitterness, they were foreshadowing. Everything started lining up. The strange timelines, the vanishing baby bumps, the oddly shaped bellies that changed from event to event, one day flat, next day round, even the photos that never quite matched. Something felt off. And then, quietly, the whispers turned toward one forbidden word: surrogacy. Surrogacy isn't shameful. It's a gift for families who can't conceive. But inside the royal family, it's complicated. Bloodlines, traditions, titles, every birth matters. If Meghan couldn't carry a child, that meant the world had watched a performance while another woman lived the real story. And that's when the world met DL. Calm, composed, her voice steady. "I carried Archie," she said, "and I carried Lilibet." She wasn't claiming kindness. She wasn't seeking attention. She said she was the surrogate, the one who experienced the real contractions, the ultrasounds, the late-night nausea, while Meghan posed for cameras. According to DL, She'd been promised privacy and protection. Instead, she said she was treated like a vessel invisible once the deal was sealed. Her words weren't angry, just haunting. "I was treated like a vessel," she repeated softly. And with that, the royal illusion cracked. Because now there were two pregnancies, one hidden, one performed, and both colliding in truth. DL's story wasn't vague gossip. It came with details. She spoke of a Beverly Hills fertility clinic, private entrances, files labeled only with numbers. She said she was contacted just weeks after the royal wedding contracts, meetings, medical cycles arranged like clockwork. She claimed her IVF cycle began right before Meghan's first pregnancy announcement. Her due dates matched. Her symptoms matched. While Meghan smiled for cameras, DL said she was the one feeling the kicks. 2 pregnancies, 2 women, 2 worlds, and only one real heartbeat. If she had only talked, maybe people would have dismissed her. But she brought evidence, appointment logs, embryo implantation schedules, ultrasounds, 2 scans, both stamped with her ID. One from 2019, one from 2020, both exactly aligned with Meghan's public pregnancies. Then came the payments. Wire transfers from companies that vanished after sending money. DL showed the receipts. She said some payments were delayed, some cut off. And then came the NDA, a thick, cold document that threatened ruin if she ever spoke. But a lawyer discovered something the royal team hadn't noticed. It wasn't fully enforceable outside the US. That tiny loophole became DL's courage. Her proof wasn't emotional. It was procedural documents, signatures, timestamps. Enough to turn whispers into evidence. And then, her calm revelation that Prince Harry himself had been there. She said he attended appointments quietly, using side doors, sitting in silence behind tinted glass. He signed forms, approved procedures, and made sure the public timeline matched the medical one. "He looked me in the eye," DL said. He knew. If true, this wasn't just Meghan's secret, it was theirs. And from that moment, insiders said Harry began to unravel. They described him as tense, withdrawn, checking everything twice, terrified not of danger but of truth. When the palace heard DL's claims, panic set in. Not because of the gossip, but because of the law. Royal succession rules are rigid. A royal child must be born of the mother's body to claim succession rights automatically. Surrogacy is allowed only with full transparency and official declaration. But Archie and Lilibet were accepted into the line quietly, no questions asked. If DL's story held, it wasn't just personal deception, it was constitutional chaos. Inside the palace, whispers grew into late-night meetings. Advisors asked impossible questions. Did anyone inside know? Were records altered? Was the royal line compromised? And if so, how do you fix a crown already polished for the cameras? One palace aide reportedly said, "Surrogacy doesn't break the monarchy, deception does." And that's exactly what terrified them. While Meghan and Harry stayed silent, DL moved forward. Her calm turned into motion. She said she had more papers, more correspondence, more proof. Networks reached out, lawyers prepared. Her team began shaping a release strategy, global, undeniable. And then, the final shock. She said she was ready for a live DNA test. On camera. "If I'm lying," she said, "the world will know in minutes. But if I'm not, they'll have to explain everything." That one sentence froze everyone. Meghan's PR team went quiet. Harry's friends said he barely slept. The palace, behind closed doors, scrambled to predict every possible outcome. Because a DNA test isn't opinion, it's final. No interview, no statement, no polished documentary could undo that. If the results matched DL's story, everything, titles, lineage, reputation, would collapse in one heartbeat. And even now, that's what terrifies them. The silence feels louder than any denial could. The longer no one speaks, the closer the storm feels. The fairy tale began with a wedding watched by millions. But behind the vows and the carriage rides, something else was unfolding, a deception too fragile to last forever. Now every thread is tightening. Trevor's quiet warning. Samantha's hints. DL's documents. The clinic's records. The financial trail. The NDA loophole. Harry's alleged involvement. The palace's dread. The looming DNA test. They're all colliding like storm clouds, gathering before lightning hits. And when it strikes, it won't just shake a couple. It could rewrite royal history, because this time, the next chapter doesn't belong to Meghan, or Harry, or even the palace. It belongs to the truth. And the truth doesn't negotiate. It waits patiently until the moment it can't be buried anymore. Trevor's quiet confession started it all. A man who once loved her, who kept her secrets, finally letting the truth breathe. And from that moment, nothing in the royal world has felt certain again. This isn't the end of the story. It's the moment before the thunder, when the air feels charged and the whole world holds its breath. Because once the lightning hits, once the truth flashes for everyone to see, there's no going back. And when that day comes, when the masks fall, when the papers surface, when the DNA speaks, history won't remember the silence. It will remember who finally dared to break it. But deep down, everyone knows the silence won't last forever. Truth doesn't stay buried. It seeps through cracks, through nervous glances, through the tremble in every no comment. Even the palace walls, thick with centuries of secrets, can't contain something this explosive. The whispers have already slipped out through corridors, through aides, through the eyes of people who suddenly look away when her name is mentioned. Trevor, once just a forgotten name from Meghan's Hollywood past, has become the unintentional spark. He never asked for this spotlight. He didn't need it. But his honesty, quiet and hesitant, set off a chain reaction no one can stop now. He was the first to say it, that what looked like royalty might just be a performance, a script written too perfectly to be real. And now, the world is watching. Every new photograph, every polished statement, every carefully chosen word from the Sussexes feels like part of a countdown. Because if DL steps forward, if her DNA test goes live, then even the strongest royal PR machinery won't be enough to clean the ashes. Behind every perfect fairy tale, there's a shadow. And this shadow is spreading fast. It's in every conversation whispered behind palace doors, every call between anxious lawyers, every sleepless night in Montecito. The truth is circling closer, and when it finally lands, it won't knock politely. It'll roar. And the world, once again, will watch, only this time, not to celebrate, but to see who survives the storm.